Welcome to it's a virtual stand-up, I guess, from Eli, McKown, and I. I'm Joe Dandron. He's Eli. We're the two football writers for the State News. And Eli, what a game yesterday. Michigan State beating number 13 U of M on the road. We're doing this Sunday morning, the day after the game. But Michigan State beating number 13 Michigan on the road, 27-24.
Yeah, I mean, I have no words for it, really. I mean, it was a game where after the Rutgers loss that seemed, everyone was leaving it like, not even the D'Antonio era stooped this low, losing to a Rutgers team. Not even I saw people comparing it to John L. Smith, that kind of loss where they have 7 turnovers, and then an extra 2 turnovers on downs. And, going into this game, it just felt like after that loss, it was like, well, this is a building year for Mel Tucker. This is going to be a building year for him and the squad. They're just not there yet. And they go into Michigan. And I mean, this wasn't, you can look at some of these past games where you look at 2017 where Michigan State won in the rain and Michigan has awful quarterback play, trouble with the snap in 2015, some of those things like that. This was not one of those games. This was a game where Michigan State came in and won that football game. This wasn't a game where either team made like very many mistakes, 0 turnovers on both sides. And they won this, they flat out just won this football game.
And I mean, Michigan coming in was depending where you look, was anywhere from a 24 to a 27-point favorite. It depends on where you look. I think the final odds might have won that, but 3 touchdowns, easier, is to say. Coming to the game, I mean, my prediction was 42-14, Michigan winning, and I will own up to that one. I was wrong, I think, everybody was, right?
You're all wrong.
I get in a rivalry, you can throw records out the window, you can say this or that or whatever, it's a rivalry game, anything can happen. Well, we saw that yesterday. And really also the only thing that this cemented for me is that in a year where everything is weird, anything can happen. Eli, I know you and I discussed that last night. And, and there's a lot of ways, you could tell that Michigan State was ready to play from the jump. The physicality of the defense, the play calling on offense was hit or miss at certain points, especially in the first half. It did improve in the second half, I thought. And they took their shots. But that was another thing, too. I think they might have taken 13 deep shots in that game or something. I mean, they were testing the secondary U of M, which was the weakness. Outside of Daxton Hill, there really was nothing there for U of M.
Going into this game, they had a game plan from the jump. They figured out what they wanted to do. They didn't turn the ball over. They were stout on defense. And the other thing I wanted to bring up as well, something that Michigan State has lacked in these last few years and the couple last years of the D'Antonio era was an offensive line. And that's due to injuries. It's due to a loss of a lot of talent, not being consistent, a lot of youth, all of that. They looked phenomenal yesterday. Didn't allow a single sack.
Yeah, the offensive line, especially, to me, it was more so who you do it against, right? I mean, you've got a guy, Aiden Hutchinson and Kwity Paye. Those are 2 guys who are going to play on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And, that's just the fact. Kwity Paye, you look at the projections, he could be a first-round pick. And, frankly, the offensive line immediately was getting pushed off the line of scrimmage, which was something that you did not see against Rutgers. I don't know if that had to do with, like a lack of cohesion on the offensive line. But I'm going to tell you one thing. Matt Allen, who was the starting center at the beginning of the year, didn't play. And I thought Nick Saban looked really good at the end of last season when he got a lot of time. And he didn't start the season this year. No Matt Allen due to, I would assume an injury of some kind. He wasn't dressed for yesterday's game. But you're without your starting center, who is one of the Allens who are kind of a legacy at MSU. They looked a lot more improved with Samak on the line in the middle of the offensive line, really. But even what was crazy, Michigan State was getting pressure on Joe Milton, mm-hmm. which on the other side of the ball, that was surprising to me more so because I thought that offensive line of Michigan played exceptionally well against Minnesota, and I did not think that Michigan State was going to be able to consistently get pressure like they did. They weren't getting sacks, but they were knocking them down.
Yeah, and they couldn't get it going against Michigan State. And I said from the start, like from the season, I thought that the secondary with a lot of young pieces, not necessarily very many standouts. Xavier Henderson right now is probably the one standout in that secondary, and the rest of them are kind of like a lot of interchangeable rotating pieces that they've kind of had there that are now starting to solidify their roles. I thought Shakur Brown played phenomenal. I guess I was very confused as to why they didn't try attacking it more, especially because we've heard all this offseason is how fantastic Joe Milton's arm was. And we saw it at times, how that ball comes out of his hand like a rocket. I mean, he has an absolute cannon, but it seemed like on some of those deep routes, he couldn't complete them. He couldn't get the accuracy down. And that was just the thing on offense. I mean, they kept getting these short little routes, but Michigan State on defense had a bend, don't break mentality. They'd let them get a few yards, they'd move upfield, but then they'd get midfield and they'd stall out. I mean, I think this defensive line, especially from the jump, Jacob Honishuk, Naquan Jones, some of these guys, they were in Joe Milton's face the entire game. And another one, too.
I thought especially so with Naquan Jones. He had a very good game.
Yes. And I also think the two linebackers and Noah Harvey and Antoine Simmons. Antoine Simmons obviously had a phenomenal game against a game that's really personal for him against Michigan, playing at Ann Arbor Pioneer as when he was in high school. But Noah Harvey did an amazing job, and he did a lot that we haven't really seen in him. He was getting to the quarterback and really breaking up the run game as well. It was a masterful performance by the defense. Masterful.
Yeah. And now, Michigan State, after, what was really probably one of the most shocking wins in recent memory for, especially in this rivalry, just the way that it happened, Michigan State loses to Rutgers in week 1, and then you have Minnesota getting whooped up on by Michigan, 49-24. And that was a home game for Minnesota. Minnesota, who went 11-2 last year, they've got problems. They lost to Maryland on Friday. I watched that game, and I will say Maryland improved. Minnesota, though, that defense has a lot of issues. The offense is not the problem for the Gophers. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And Michigan State has Iowa next weekend on the road. Eli and I will both be out there. That game it's a noon kick. Another noon kick. I believe that game is going to be televised on ESPN in Iowa City. Kinnick. I've never seen Kinnick, so I'm excited to get there. So we'll be there. So make sure to follow our coverage of that game. I think it's going to do it for us, though. So yeah, so make sure to follow us the rest of the week. We'll have a lot of stuff coming out on the football team. And then also next weekend when Michigan State travels to Iowa.